Hey, what's up everybody? This is Josh from The Audio Programmer. And in this sponsored video in partnership with Native Instruments, we're going to show you how to create your own Leap expansion for Kontakt. Leap is a new loop engine in Kontakt 8 that blends sampling and looping for real-time creativity. It lets you trigger loops with white keys and control effects with black keys, making it ideal for fast-paced studio work or live sets. Building your own Leap kit lets you share your creative ideas in a way that's spontaneous, hands-on, and ready to inspire others, whether they're producing tracks, performing live, or exploring new sounds. So why should you consider making your own Leap pack? Let's take a look at some of the key benefits. 1. Share your sound instantly playable. Leap packs make your loops and one-shots plug-and-play ready. Users can load your sounds and start experimenting immediately with no setup, no mapping, and just music. 2. Built for performance. With effects mapped to black keys and loops and one-shots to white keys, Leap packs give musicians a live performance-ready experience straight out the box. 3. Reach a growing audience. Kontakt's ecosystem has a huge user base. Creating a Leap pack puts your sounds in front of producers, composers, and performers who are always on the hunt for fresh content. So you ready to build your first Leap expansion? Let's dive in and I'll show you how. All right, let's get started. The first thing that we're going to need to do is set up Kontakt for creating Leap expansions. To do this, we're going to need the Leap SDK support files. These are a set of tools from NI that give you access to exclusive modes and tags within Kontakt to create your expansion. You can download the files right here from the Native Instrument website. I'll put a link in the description below. The Leap SDK requires user and password credentials that you will receive after you sign the agreement with Native Instruments. So let's go ahead and download these. Now, Kontakt Leap has a special mode called Sound Design Mode, which unlocks extra tools specifically for building Leap expansions. To use it, make sure that we have the standalone version of Kontakt installed and activated with the full license. You don't actually need the plugin versions for this part. So, first thing that we're going to do is enable Sound Design Mode. And the way that we're going to do this is by going into the Toggles folder. Then go into the operating system folder that you're on. I'm on Mac. Now we want to enable Sound Design Mode. And the way that we do this is by running this Enable Leap SD Mode command. When we click on this on Mac, we're going to get a dialog that says that it can't be open. Let's just click on OK. Then we go up to the top left to our Apple, into System Settings, into Privacy, then scroll all the way down, and you'll see a special section that says that this file was blocked from use because it's not from an identified developer. Click Open Anyway, input your password, click Open, and then it'll say Enable Leap Sound Design Mode, and then click OK. Now, this mode will be available on the next launch of Kontakt. Just a note that once you're finished making your Leap expansion, you can disable the Leap Sound Design Mode by running the other toggle, Disable Leap SD Mode. You may need to run through the privacy and security again if you're on Mac. And then after you've done that, Kontakt will run again in standard mode. Now that we've enabled Sound Design Mode, we can open Kontakt in standalone mode. And the next step that we want to do is to install the tag helper content. First step to do this is to make sure that we're in this library view. If you're not in the library view, you can get there by clicking on the library option at the top, and that opens and closes the library view. So now we want to go down to the settings where we can import content. So we click there. Then we want to go to our user presets. So going to the top here between custom libraries and user presets, we select here. And then we want to select add. From here, we want to go to the folder where our Leap SDK is. And then we want to go to Leap Tagging Guide, and we select Open. Once we've done this, Then we want to click on the Leap tagging guide here in the import content section and select rescan. You won't actually see anything happen here, but it'll actually scan the content very quickly. Then hit close. Now, to make sure that this has happened properly, you can go to the Leap tab in Kontakt. Then you can go to this toggle up here at the top right, and this toggles between the factory and the user created content. Just select there. And if you see the Leap tagging guide in this section, then you've done everything properly. Now, let's talk about building your kits. These are the heart of your Leap expansion. For each kit, you'll want to create a set of up to 16 samples. These are the ingredients that will make up the sauce, the sounds the users will jam with, chop, and build tracks from. Think of it like building a Loop playground. Your goal is to give the user fun, a musical space to spark ideas, whether it's for full tracks, intros, or just creative inspiration. Kontakt supports WAV, AIFF, and REX files, and it's important to stick with high-quality samples, ideally 24-bit at a sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz or better. And here's something really important. Make sure the loops in each kit work well together. That means matching the tempo, key, and scale, especially for melodic content. The more cohesive your kit sounds, the better the user experience will be. As for how many kits, around 10 is a solid number for a full expansion, but you can include more if you've got the material. Okay, now it's time to check out our samples. Here's a little kit that I made myself. One of the most important things is naming our loops and samples in a way that we can reference quickly. Changing out samples can be tricky once they're in Leap, so it's helpful to get things right the first time. For this, I've used NI's recommended format for file naming from their documentation alongside their tagging reference from their website. NI only allows specific tags, so make sure that you use these tags in your naming convention. More than anything, it's important that you keep your naming for these files consistent across all of your drum kits. Be sure to check out the Native Instruments website regularly for any updates or additions on naming conventions that are in the Leap SDK. Let's take a look at these samples. For loops, the convention is sound type, BPM, key, and kit name. For one-shots, it's sound type, the key, and the kit name. Following this type of structure makes things easier to manage, especially if you're working in a bigger collection. Just a note, when you import these samples into Leap, Kontakt will try to detect the key and tempo from the metadata in the file and by audio analysis. This might fail though, and this is why it's important to name your loops and one-shots accordingly to have a reference just in case Leap fails the detection. The next step is to create a Leap project. To do this, go to the top menu to File and select New Leap Preset. If this option is not available, then you probably have Kontakt in Classic View. To switch to Default View, go to View in the menu, switch to Default View, then go back to File, and then select New Leap Preset, and you should be ready to go. Now we have a blank Leap custom kit. This consists of 16 sample slots, which are represented by the white keys from C3 to D5. And we can add a sample by dragging the sample onto the key. Let's take our drums and drag them onto the first slot on C3. This is a drum loop, so what I'll do is I will switch on the looping here. I can also see that Kontakt has correctly detected the speed as 122 BPM. However, the tuning of the drums is in F minor, so I'm going to make an adjustment on the tonality section in the bottom right here. Now we can play the drums. So everything is playing great. Let's add another sample. I'm going to take the bass and I'm going to put it on sample slot 2. All right, so now this is dragged in. It's correctly detected the key as F minor and the BPM as 122. I can see here that it's turned the tuning up 5 semitones to C minor, so I'm just going to turn that down to F minor. And now let's play both at the same time. I noticed that I did not switch the looping on for the bass loop, so I'm going to go ahead and switch that on. And now our bass loop is in. Let's go ahead and add a couple more samples now. One important thing is to make sure that the order of your kits is coherent across all the kits of your expansion. For example, for this, I've started off with my drums, and then I do bass, and then I have leads, and then I have pads and miscellaneous sound effects at the end. So make sure that you keep this order across all of the kits that you save. Also, make sure that you set the loop points for your drums really tight so you don't have any silence at the beginning or end, so the loop is nice and tight. You want to make sure that you get an audio response as soon as you press a key. Okay, so now I've dropped all my samples onto my kit and I'm satisfied with how it's sounding. The next step is to save the kit. One important thing is that it's very important not to do File, then Save As. This will save your files as absolute paths to your samples, which is undesirable for kits that are going to be shipped to other users. Instead of doing that, we want to go with the shortcut Command-Shift-S on Mac, or if you're on Windows, the shortcut would be Control-Shift-S. Next, we want to save our patches as patch only. So not patch plus samples or monolith, just patch only. And I'm going to call this kit Boom. I'm going to put this on my desktop. And now I should see the NKL file of my new kit on my desktop. There are even more ways that you can tweak and refine your samples. Here are just a few to get you started. We can edit the effects on an individual sample. We can do this by going up to the Edit section at the very top of the custom kit. Now let's click on one of the samples. So this is one of our bass samples, and what I want to do is I want to increase the output of this. Let's see if we can add a filter to make this a little bit more aggressive. Here you have 4 different filter types. You have neutral, juicy, mild, and aggressive. So I like this aggressive sound here. Let's go for this. Let's add a little bit of resonance. And now I'm just going to cut it down a little bit. So that's one way that you can use the individual settings for each one of the samples to tweak this to your liking. Another way that we can tweak our sounds is through the Send Effects. So if we go to the Send Effects tab, here we have 3 different algorithms for our delay and our reverb respectively that we can switch from. And we can use this to tweak our send effects. These send effects are currently controlled by macros, and I can tell this by the light that's here in the top left of the gain. We'll talk a little bit more about those later, but let's go ahead and see if we can tweak the sound of this delay. So this is a way that you can tweak your send algorithms for your delay and your reverb. Another way that we can tweak the way that the user interacts with our custom kit is through the performance effects. So if you click on the performance effects tab at the very top, we have a set of effects that the user triggers when they press on the black keys while pressing on a sample. The first 2 are unmovable. Those are the double time and half time effects. But we can edit any of the effects that have these drop-down arrows. So let's go ahead and have a listen to this 3rd effect. So that is a beat masher, but I think we can do better than that. Let's see what Beat Slicer does for us. I like that sound because that fits more with our style of electronic drums. So I'm going to leave that there. So this last section to me is one of the most interesting, which is the global effects section. And you can get to this section by clicking on the global effects tab at the very top. It has two sections at the top, which are the insert effects, which are more creative effects like choruses, filters, bit crushing. And then you have main effects, which are more for dynamics like compression and limiting. The way that it works is that we can take the 8 macro dials that are down at the bottom, and we can take those and map those to parameters at the top so that we can control more than one parameter at a time. So currently we have a very simple type of mapping happening on our first macro with filter cutoff. We can tell that the macro is modifying the filter cutoff because we have a red dot at the top left of the macro. And then we also have the same red dot at the top left-hand side of the filter cutoff. So when I move the macro, it also moves the filter cutoff. Now to make a mapping, what I could do is click on the red dot. And now that it has gone dim, I know that it's ready to map to a parameter. So what I could do is I could click on either one of these parameters to map it. And once I've done that, then it's just a question of how much I want this macro dial to affect the dial that I'm mapping to. So currently this is the resonance dial, so I'm going to have it modify this at about 50%. So let's go ahead and hear how that sounds. So another interesting thing that we can do is we can actually map these in reverse. So we saw that when we were turning the cutoff down, that the resonance was going down, but I actually want the resonance to go up. So I'm going to switch these two so that as I turn the dial down, the resonance goes up. And if I want to, I can make that effect a little bit more apparent. So that becomes a little bit more like a DJ filter. So another thing that I can do is I can rename this macro if I want to by clicking on this pen. And then I click on the name. And maybe I just want to call this filter. And that is how you map with the macro and global effects. I think that's a lot of fun. Now that we've finished tweaking our samples, we can move on to tagging the kit and the samples that we have inside the kit. To do this, we need to go back to our library view by clicking Library in the top menu. Let's then ensure that we're looking at Leap kits by making sure that we've selected the Leap tab. Then we need to make sure that we're looking at our user content by toggling on the icon at the top right for toggling between factory and user created content. We'll know we're in the right place if we see the Leap tagging guide. If we don't see our saved kit here, don't worry. It's probably because we haven't added the right directory where our new Leap kit resides. Let's open our import content settings here in the bottom left. As you can see, the saved kit is on my desktop, but I haven't added my desktop as a folder for my user presets. Let's go ahead and do that now. We'll click Add. Then we'll go to my desktop and I'll select Open. Now I will select the desktop and select Rescan and Close. And now I see my custom Leap kit here. And I can select my preset in the menu on the right. Let's open the properties by clicking on the eye in the bottom right. And now we want to edit these properties by clicking in edit mode on the top right. Let's click on the tags section, then click on kit, and here we can add the type of kit that we're doing, which is a digital kit. Let's hit apply. And now we've tagged our kit. Now let's tag our samples. NI labels all the samples in our Leap kit as one-shots by default. So to find the samples, we need to go to the one-shots tab at the top. From here, we can go into our presets and find our first preset, which is bass FM boom. Let's go ahead and tag this one as a bass. And this is a synth bass. And I will label it as dark. Then I'm going to go to the Properties tab, scroll down to Content Type, and since I want this to play as a loop, I'm going to change the content type from one shot to loop. Hit Apply, and now I'm done with that sample. Let's go ahead and do this for the rest of our samples. Since we're finished with our kit, we now need to create some additional assets to submit to Native Instruments for approval. The first is an audio preview for each one of your kits. Here are some guidelines. 1. The audio file should be 6 seconds or less. 2. It should be representative of the kit as the user will experience it, not a demo of a performance. 3. The audio file needs to be normalized to -19 LUFS with a 3 dB peak. This can be done using tools such as Twisted Wave. Finally, the preview must be delivered in the audio format OGG Vorbis. There are various free tools available online that will allow you to do this conversion for you from a WAV file. Next, we need to create some artwork and a theme for our Leap pack. We can do this with the help of Figma, which is a free online design tool, as well as NI's design template that came inside the SDK. Let's dive in and I'll show you how. Here we are inside of Figma, and I'll be using the desktop version of Figma for this, but the same principles would apply if you were using this inside of the browser. First thing you want to do is import the NI template project file. You can do this using import in Figma. Then import from computer. Then you navigate to your Leap SDK support files, into the graphics folder, into the Figma file. That's the Leap SDK external production template.fig. I've already imported this, so I'm going to go to the project now. Next, we need to import our artwork. The artwork needs to be exactly 1940 by 1360 pixels. You can import the artwork by dragging and dropping the artwork into Figma. Next, I need to get my background art into this production template. The way that we do this is going over to the bottom left where it says Preview, clicking the drop-down arrow, and we see this area that says Artwork down here at the bottom. What we need to do is get our background art, which is way up here, drag it all the way down to artwork. Now we don't see it anymore, but we see the outline. And what we can do is just take it and drag it into the area where the production template is. I'm going to zoom in here so we can get it perfect. And I need to make sure that this lines up exactly right. Now I can go to the other artwork that was here before, and I can just delete this. Now we're going to change the accent color of the Leap instrument. This is more for us to make sure that our design is looking the way that we want to once we export everything. The way that we do this is go over to Shell over here at the bottom left under Preview. Then we see the selection colors, so go ahead and expand that out. And then what I'm going to do is paste in the hex color that is the primary color that I've used for my artwork. Press enter. And this is looking really nice. Next, I need to put my logo in place. One thing that's nice about this Figma template is that they actually have borders here that show where your logo is supposed to go. So I just need to fit my logo inside this shaded area. So let's go ahead and bring that in. I will bring this down to size. Make sure that that's perfectly centered within this area. And now we are good to go. The final step here is that we need to go ahead and hide the measurements that we have here. So let's go ahead and hide this. We're also going to hide the macros panel, and we're going to hide the keyboard panel. Also hide the logo overlay panel. Now what you should be left with is your artwork with your logo with Leap at the top. If you don't have the Leap section at the top, then you have hidden your header. Make sure that you do not hide the header section. So now we click on that, and we can click on export. We're going to call this file expansion name backdrop. I'm going to save this to my desktop. And now we have saved our artwork. There are 3 other mandatory media files that we need to create, and the specific requirements for these and other optional assets are detailed in the NI documentation. I'll put the link in the video description so you can read those separately. To help give an idea of what these assets are like, I've created some sample ones myself. The first one is our main product logo, and this can be in SVG or in PNG format, and it needs to be called source logo A and lowercase and capitalized, just as you see here in my sample. The second one is our product artwork, which needs to be called source artwork.png. Once again, lowercase and capitalized, just as you see here on the file. And that's just the artwork itself. And the third one is a product screenshot itself, just as it would look within Kontakt without any of the other Kontakt elements. And that needs to be called screenshot.png. Now that we have these assets, we'll use the NKS Asset Designer to create some additional production assets that Native Instruments will need. To access the Asset Designer, we need to go back into our Leap SDK support files, into Graphics, and then into NKS Asset Designer. In this folder, you'll find documentation that further details the steps I'm about to show you. It also has an example of what these assets should look like. And then it has platform-specific asset designers for Mac and Windows respectively. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip the Mac Asset Designer since I'm on Mac. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this folder my product name, which is Boom with a P. Now I'm going to open this folder. And I'm going to take the asset designer that I just unzipped, and I'm going to move it into this folder. Now I'm going to create a folder called Sources with a capital S. I'm going to click into this folder, and then I'm going to create another folder. And I'm going to call this folder our product name, which is Boom with a P. Then I'm going to click into this folder. And inside this folder, I will put my screenshot, source artwork, and source logo. Now I will go back out to the folder that has the asset designer. And I'm going to open the asset designer. Of course, if I'm on Mac, it will say that it can't be opened, and I will do the steps that I did to open the Leap SDK, which is to click OK. Then go up to the Apple in the top left-hand corner, go to System Settings, go down to Privacy and Security, down to where it says NKS Asset Designer was blocked from use. Click Open Anyway. Use your password. Click Open. And now I'm in the Asset Designer. So this is a way that we can design the additional assets that Native Instruments is going to need. And you can do further customizations on this, but I'm going to keep this mostly the same. I'm happy with how this looks. The only thing I'm going to change is the logo color. I'm going to change this from white to the red color that I have here. And the hash for this is F65740. Let's also take a look at the NKS2 assets and make sure those are looking good. So everything looks good here. The only thing that I'm going to do is change the color of the knobs to the same color as the logo. Now that looks fantastic. I just wanted to mention again that there is further documentation on this process as well as examples within the Leap SDK. Once I'm done with everything and I'm happy with how it looks, then I will go up to the top right where I can export these. Now that's done, I'm going to close out the asset designer. And we will know if this worked properly if we see a new folder in our project folder called assets. If we click in here and then into the project folder, we'll see a whole bunch of new assets. And that's how we'll know that this worked correctly. All right, now we're ready to package this up for NI. The first thing that we're going to do is go back into our product folder. We're going to create a new folder called artwork. Take the sources and assets and place them inside artwork. Next, we're going to delete the NKS asset designer as we don't need this anymore. Now we're going to create a new folder called unencoded with a lowercase u. Now place artwork inside unencoded. The next step is that we need to create a hidden folder called previews. On Mac, we need to use the terminal in order to do this. To find the terminal, go up to the spotlight on the top right for your Mac. Type in terminal. Open the terminal. Now what we're going to do is type cd, then take the unencoded folder and drag it into the terminal window. Next, we're going to do make dir with the command mkdir, space, and then dot previews with an S. Then hit enter. Now go back to the unencoded folder. And now you should see a hidden previews folder in here. If you don't see the folder, you can make it appear with the command shift period. And that makes your hidden folders appear and disappear. Click into the previews folder. This is where all of our audio previews are going to be. Now take the Og Vorbis previews that you've created and drag it into the previews folder. Now we want to make a folder called kits with a capital K. Now place the previews inside the kits folder. Now we will create a effects folder, effects with a capital E. For Leap expansions, we don't need to place anything inside of that folder. And now we will create a samples folder. Click inside the samples folder. Inside this folder, we just need the samples for each one of our kits. In this case, we only have one kit, which is our boom kit. So I'm going to copy this, paste this into samples. And then I'm just going to add the word samples with a capital S at the very end. And now we're going to go back one folder, go into the kits folder, and now we're going to place the NKL files into the kits folder. Okay, now you're done. Let's go ahead and review that folder structure just to make sure that we have it right. Click into the folder. You should have one folder called unencoded with a lowercase u. Clicking into unencoded, you should have 4 folders: artwork, effects, kits, and samples. Clicking into artwork, you should have 2 folders: assets and sources. Clicking into effects, you should have nothing since this is a Leap expansion. Clicking into kits, you should have a folder called previews that contains a Og Vorbis preview for each one of your kits and the NKL file for each kit. Then in samples, you should have a samples folder, and inside there, you should have your samples. Now, your Leap pack is ready for submission and approval from Native Instruments. So there you have it. Creating your custom Leap pack is an exciting new way to give music makers a way to stimulate new ideas and help others get to know you and your sound. I hope you found this video informative. Keep in mind that there are further details and documentation via the NI website. Until then, happy coding, and we hope to see you again soon.